Welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root, where we dive deep into understanding and addressing root causes of chronic health issues so you can help and find healing inside and out, now and forever.
Hello, and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root. I'm Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice, Trifecta Collective. Welcome to the podcast. So today, I am talking about big picture, the magic pill. The magic pill that we're all looking for that will address all of our hormone issues and gut issues and fatigue issues and nervous system dysregulation stuff and all of these things that there's a lot of these things right now. And I will tell you, I feel a lot of passion towards this topic. So forewarning, I might get a little worked up, might get a little heated on some of these topics because I'm seeing a lot of things in the health and wellness space right now. And by the way, I am never sold and or not sold on anything. If there is something new on the market, let's test it. Let's take a deeper look. Let's look at all of these things and let's not bandwagon a lot of these. And big things I absolutely am going to touch on. The two big ones I really want to do a deeper dive on and share a lot of potentially updated thoughts and things to think about when it comes to psychedelic use. We are seeing a resurgence in our practice of inquiries around psychedelics, using psychedelics, microdosing, macrodosing, all of the things. And I feel like I'm seeing, and maybe it's just the universe hearing me talk about these things a little bit more again. And so I'm also seeing more on social media on all sides for the realm of psychedelics. So I want to share some thoughts on this. And then peptides is another really big one. I'm gonna throw in a handful of other things. And what I want to be really clear about is, first and foremost, I have not found a magic pill in the health and wellness space. The one thing that is a game changer for the vast majority of people, I have not found. If I had, I promise you would see me really heavily promoting something and making a bunch of money, and I would be sitting on a beautiful piece of land building a house right now. And that is 100% what I would be doing. I have not found it. I have not found it. I have not seen it. I have not seen the research. I have not seen anything in practice be the ultimate magic pill. What I do see, though, are a variety of tools that all have a time and a place if used appropriately and with the understanding that these things are tools. And there's a lot of tools that are out there. And there's a time and a place. And there's a type of person where these tools can be very valuable and can help be what I like to call them, especially in the psychedelic space, is I call them an accelerator. These things, certain things can be accelerators for certain people. And once again, we get a lot of questions now on peptides. Do you use peptides? I'm looking to use peptides, looking to work with someone who uses peptides, which cool, great. And do you really know what you're getting yourself into? And have you done deep dives into not only the research, because we also need to understand the limitations of research and what has been researched but has not been researched, especially when it comes to women's health. And if you're wanting to try something and you're not working with a practitioner or working with someone who is very well versed and trained in whatever the thing is, maybe do some of your own research. I mean, even this is where I think you know, AI also has a time and a place. It can be a tool, can lie to you as well. And there can be detrimental impacts of this. And I think I'm already seeing this in some individuals where they're using AI as a therapist, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I also know deep down in my heart that they're looking for connection. And AI may fill part of that, and it's not the same. It's not the same as community. It's not the same as real human connection. I'll also tell you, I've been looking into support groups again for various people in just the chronic illness spaces for a variety of different things. We can say big picture, just chronic illness space in general. And I'm not seeing these things that I think could be really valuable to a lot of people. And of course, yes, I am thinking about putting some of these things together. And what does that really look like? How do we put that together in a cohesive, effective manner? And what does this really look like in a way that's going to feel supportive? So, once again, all of these things have a time and a place. Western medicine has a time and a place. We are never anti-Western medicine. And knowing the scope of practice of what Western medicine is trained in and what it's designed to do also goes a long way. Same thing with functional health practitioners. I'll say this, and I'm not saying this as a blanket statement. And I have never personally worked with a naturopathic doctor, an ND, nor have I seen a client come to us after having worked with an ND that has had a ton of success, unfortunately, and long-term sustained success. Let's also throw that out there because I think that's an important piece of all of this. So, all health practitioners are a little bit different. Were they trained in Western medicine first? Were they trained in the functional health space first? Were they just trained in testing? Were they just trained in the nutrition side of things? Like, were they just, did their program go really heavy on supplements? What other trainings have they had? And once again, there is no right or wrong answer to any of these things. Every one of these things has a time and a place. And knowing what you're getting into, understanding, is this the right tool for you, I think is really, really important. So let me start with the psychedelic side of things. And just in case you have not heard me talk about psychedelics at all, I have worked with psychedelics for many years now, personally, and I've also taken multiple courses in the psychedelic space, and I'm trained in how to facilitate support in that arena, in certain arenas within that space. I am not trained in all psychedelics. I actually only largely work with two that are out there. I am trained in a third, and I've never felt very called to use that third one. So, personally, I have done well over a dozen psilocybin journeys. Psilocybin is magic mushrooms. It's the substance inside magic mushrooms. I microdosed for years consistently using psilocybin. I have done mini doses. I have done very large, what I would consider very large doses. I have worked, same thing with MDMA. I have worked with MDMA well over a dozen journeys at this point. I have facilitated and supported in both of those spaces, and using both of those tools is what I like to call them. We don't mini dose or microdose MDMA. I've also microdosed LSD. LSD is the other one I am trained in, and have never felt super called to it. Once again, I think it's great. I think it has a time and a place, and I've never felt a pull to it. I've also personally done, I went to an ayahuasca ceremony in South America a few years ago and did 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, and also did a very traditional wachuma ceremony, which is a cactus, comes from a cactus, wachuma. I do not facilitate either one of those. They're totally different ball games, in my opinion. And those are things that I'm not I don't support in and I have partaken in. And I've read, I continue to read a lot of the emerging research that comes out from clinical settings, clinical trials, especially when it comes to anxiety, PTSD, depression, CPSD, CPT, complex PTSD, CPTSD, and all of these things. And by the way, like I don't hang on to a lot of quote unquote diagnoses personally. Doesn't feel good to me to hang on to these. And yes, I have very complex PTSD. And from a clinical setting, I've been diagnosed with a bunch of things, including severe anxiety, severe depression, and complex PTSD, among a variety of other health-related issues that, once again, I don't hang on to them. I'm aware that these things can come up. And for me, I choose not to hang on to these diagnoses because I did for a long time and they did not serve me. And for me, shifting out of that mindset has gone a long way. And psychedelics have been a big part of that. So when we look at, let's say, the positives of psychedelics, I mean, pretty amazing research on people with PTSD and CPTSD and depression, anxiety, and addiction is the other one that is being researched quite a bit. And once again, the results are pretty astounding. I mean, when we look at depression alone, microdosing, and there's also limited science when it comes to certain dosing within these things, but I'll tell you, microdosing, man, what a big difference for a lot of people when it comes to depression in particular. And anxiety for me, like it definitely helped with my anxiety for a long time. I was pretty heavily into the space for my first like three-ish years. And I only very recently, after my ayahuasca experience in March of 2024, I did do 2 mini journeys later that year, smaller type of journeys later that year. And I had not done a journey since November of 2024 until just a couple weeks ago. I did an MDMA journey. And, looking at all of these things, I was reminded of how much of a tool these things can be. And also, they have a time and a place. And we need to be aware. And I think just the awareness of this. So, very positive research, especially MDMA and psilocybin for a lot of things. I'll say MDMA in particular for, really heavy trauma backgrounds. They're using it in a lot of within the military itself, and coming back and kind of this reintroduction into society and all of the things that can go on in wartime and the levels of trauma that can come with that. And MDMA really allows you to process a lot of this without the heightened levels of emotion that can come with it. Yes, I have seen people cry on this, and it is not common. I mean, I've had people have intense journeys on MDMA, and it from a physicality standpoint, and not super common. I am one of those people at this point where I think I just have very physical journeys all the time. And what do I attribute that to? Do I expect it? Do I almost go into it expecting it now? Potentially. Am I at a point where I'm touching some really deep layers, some really deep down trauma, in which case my body needs to have a physical response to move those, to bring those up to the surface, to allow them to be processed, to allow them to be moved? Yeah, I think that's a possibility too. And I took a break because my ayahuasca experience was really intense. And I will tell you, like, great facilitators. There's a couple things that potentially I think could have been done a little bit differently that would have been a little bit supportive for me. And I had a really intense experience. Jonathan was back. Oh, this is also where Jonathan and I first met as friends and became friends, was our ayahuasca experience. And he went back earlier this year. And I mean, he was ready for it. He was all about it. And for me, the thought of doing ayahuasca again at this moment, absolutely not. No, thank you. I'm like, ugh, my body tightens up at the thought of it. Will I do it again someday? Maybe. Yeah. I'm totally open to that if I feel called to use that tool and feel like I need it. And so this is what I'm really talking about. These things are tools. I also see, let me go back to the other side kind of this, and then I'll go into how I like to use these things as tools. On the other side, people go into the psychedelic space thinking like, this is the answer. I just need to do enough journeys and this is going to fix all of my trauma. This is going to fix all of my problems. I'm going to be this new person. Da, da, da. And they could start doing dozens and dozens, tens and tens, sometimes hundreds of journeys. And then years later, they come out of it and they're like, was anything really fixed? And typically what I see from those people is they thought it was a magic pill. They thought these substances, and there's a lot more that I have not mentioned that are out there. Combo's another really big one, especially when it comes to the physical healing of the body. Ibogaine is another one that is being researched from an addiction standpoint and has some very promising results in helping with addictive behavior, and helping with addictions just overall. And there's a handful of other ones that are also out there. We can talk about like toad venom and all of the, DMT, straight DMT, and all of these other things. I have friends and I know other people who have done many of these substances. Did it really make a difference? I don't know. I don't think so. In some cases, yes. And for the amount of psychedelics that they've done, are they where I think they really should be? Probably not. And once again, this space can almost be addictive in and of itself. And feeling, the feeling for MDMA specifically, just the feelings of overwhelming love and compassion and connectedness that so many people feel while they are on MDMA. It can feel really good. And by the way, I also think it's okay to recreationally use some of these things. Once again, like, what is the intention behind these things? Are we thinking that if you do enough journeys, at some point you'll just be fixed? That blanket statement, that is never going to happen. Nothing fixes you. And psychedelics can give you a really interesting opening for different levels of healing, for looking at yourself in some different ways, for shifting patterns, for bringing awareness. But that is such a small piece of it. And I journeyed with a similar group for many years, and some of us had some really incredible shifts and changes, others maybe not quite as much. And I think it really comes down to what was the intention behind it, and most importantly, what did integration look like after? And the people who are constantly doing psychedelics, there is no integration. And that's the biggest piece, because just taking psychedelics doesn't fix anything. Using it as a tool can be supportive in deeper healing. So for me, when I first got into psychedelic work, I had tried a lot of things. And the one thing that really started making a difference for me was energy healing. And I've shared this in past episodes where I had met Christina Rice, aka Christina the Channel, and she was my original introduction into the energy healing space. I also hired her as a business coach at the time, and she was just rolling out a new program to tap into that. And there was a lot of energy work. And Yeah, I definitely got some business stuff out of that, but I will tell you the energy healing piece from a personal standpoint, from a helping me start to really process some things, game changer, life changing. Things I still use to this day, and I'm back into using a lot of her she calls it guided energy work. She has an app called Next Level You, and I have no affiliation, by the way. This is just I've personally been using it and seeing some really great results very quickly with it. And tapping back into that side has felt very supportive with where I am at right now. And I typically always do some sort of mindfulness activity every day, but that shifts and changes throughout. And I'm never afraid to change or switch things up or anything like that. And I think psychedelics have helped me with more of that flexibility of routine, a generalized routine, but a lot of flexibility within that routine. And I'm going to be talking about on another episode, revisiting the topic of masculinity and femininity and these masculine feminine energies and polarity. Jonathan and I have been doing a lot of work in that realm, and I want to share some thoughts and some things that have been coming up for me that I also know are very relevant for many other women that are out there and that we work with, and definitely a lot of women that I work with one on one and do deeper healing work. I seeing a lot of these things come up and seeing a lot of similar patterns come about. So once again, like I had a lot of tools going into, I mean, I had been in therapy for over a decade. I had done trauma therapy. I had tried hypnotherapy, tapping, once again, energy work. I mean, brain retraining, brain rewiring, somatic type work. Like I had tried a lot of things and was very consistent for a long time in that space before I even touched psychedelics. And so, excuse me, when I got into the psychedelic space, I originally found interest in it because I felt like with everything that I had done and was doing, I felt that there was more. I felt that there was deeper levels of trauma and patterns that I was having a very challenging time accessing. And I knew that psychedelics could be a potential tool that could support with that. And shortly after I had that thought, I found a good resource to get into the space and started microdosing and then got into macrodosing and bigger, deeper journey kind of spaces and all that kind of stuff. So once again, this is a tool. It can be a helpful tool, but if you are coming into the psychedelic space with no other tools, I don't see a lot of long-term shifts, and we can say like, I'm hesitant to use this word, but I can't think of a better word right now, so I'm going to put it in quotations. Success with these tools. I'll also tell you, I've been in different kinds of spaces in the psychedelic community, and some where there's a lot of foundational work already in place with most of the participants, meaning that nutrition is pretty good. Water intake is pretty good. Someone's overall health is pretty good. They're eating well. They're moving. They have a really solid mindfulness practice and connection practice and doing all of these things. And I'll tell you, those people I see better, once again, quote unquote, success with. Whereas people in different spaces where, man, they're eating junk food all the time and then thinking a psychedelic journey is going to like shift everything for them. No offense. And I might be wrong because, obviously there's a lot of individuality into this. And I'll tell you, those people are not typically, from what I have seen, don't have a lot of success or see a lot of long-term shifts that go into this. And I think this is the biggest thing that I have with all of these quote unquote magic pills that I'm talking about is if the foundations are there, yeah, these tools can move the needle. And if you are unwilling to look at basic nutrition, and I'm not talking about being perfect on any of these, I'm talking basics. Basically, your nutrition is pretty good, meaning that you eat mostly whole foods. Blood sugar is pretty well balanced from a nutritional standpoint. You're feeding and fueling your body. You're eating regular meals. You're supporting your body's health and main foods fuel source. If not, yeah, we should probably look at this foundational work first. Same thing with lifestyle things. Are you eating in a way that supports optimal digestion? Are you chewing your food? Are you trying to eat in a generalized, relaxed environment? Are you getting enough water every day? Or are you drinking 8 to 20 ounces every single day? Are you just a ball of stress and you have no tools to manage your stress? You don't move ever, or you go on maybe tiny walks every once in a while versus, a walk every day, or most days. And I'm not talking like you need to be strength training 3 times a week and then walking every day and counting your steps. Like, I'm not talking about any of this. I'm talking basics, like real basics here. Our bodies were meant to move. We need food. We need to eat. Our bodies were not designed to process a bunch of chemicals. Are our drainage pathways, generally speaking, in a decent place? If you are going to do something like MDMA, especially, and your drainage pathways are not in a good place, if you're working with me, that is not going to be on the table, because your body's going to have to process out the MDMA, and I know the mechanisms behind that, and I know what can happen as a result of this. If you don't have basic tools to calm yourself down, I'm not sure you should take any psychedelics, potentially MDMA if drainage pathways are okay and some of these other things, but psilocybin, no. Ayahuasca, absolutely not. Get out of here. Like, even Wachuma, LSD, like, because if and when, and we know this very clearly, especially if we look at psilocybin, there's a time period, there's a time block. And this has been studied, when I design like playlists and different things for retreats, for clients, all of this is taken into account, whether someone knows it or not. I know when the peak of their journey is going to be. I know what that's going to feel like, or what that can't feel like. And I know there are some big things that can come up. I also know I have been this person, and I've also seen this person, that if you are not with a well-versed facilitator who knows the trauma space, who knows how to hold space, wild things can come up. I have experienced in a group experience, meaning that there's multiple people journeying at the same time, I've had memories of sexual assault come up for me. I've also seen that with other people. That can be a lot. Like, a lot for someone. And if someone doesn't have any tools to process this going into it, if someone doesn't know how to hold the space for deep and big levels of trauma, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns come up, because I've been in that space and I have had a lot of tools, thank goodness, and it's still been a lot for me to have these memories come back, to feel it in my body while I'm in this space. Big questions of identity, questions of sexuality. Memories of being beaten as a child. Like, these are not things that are uncommon to come back up in the psychedelic space. And we have to acknowledge, especially as facilitators, and by the way, this space is real loosey-goosey. There's a lot of spaces that are loosey-goosey. Peptides is another one. I'll tell you right now too, there's this whole, and the term I'm seeing most commonly is medical wellness, of basic nutrition coaches. I'm talking people who are trained in how to manipulate macros, reading labs, because they took a 3-hour course and was given a spreadsheet and just told to put in someone's lab values. Holy cow, is that so dangerous? I have also been in that place where someone didn't know how to read labs for me and they put me on iron for over a year. And I ended up with significant iron oversaturation. And I had all the symptoms of low iron. That's why you see me talking about, especially iron right now, because this is a really big deal. This is a really big topic. And there's a lot of people who can do a lot of damage in this space. And knowledge is power, education is power. And just once again, equip yourself, ask questions. Who are you working with? How are you working with them? What is their background? What do they know? What are all of these things? Do they get annoyed with any of these questions? So we get these questions all the time, by the way. What is your background? How do you work with people? Like, what are all of these things? And, I sometimes I'm told, like, why should I pick you over someone else? I'm not going to answer that question anymore. Look at all of the resources we put out. Look at this podcast. Look at all of the content we put out. More than happy to explain my background, qualifications, our approach, client load, successes, what is success, all of these things. And at the end of the day, do I need to justify myself over a physician like an MD? No, we're doing two different things. It's different. And if someone can't see that, they're probably not ready to work with us because we're going to talk about some bigger things. And sometimes we don't have a ton of bigger things, and we're going to look at all the things. We're going to look at nutrition and lifestyle and movement, nervous system regulation, trauma patterns, lifestyle habits, underlying programs that you're running. Yeah, we're going to look at supplements too. And from a minimal standpoint, we're not going to overload someone with 15, 20, 25 plus supplements. We're also not going to run 10 million tests. If you want all of that, that's fine. We can order them. Happy to do that. And am I going to ever require someone to come in and be like, all right, these are the 4 labs that you have to have run. It's going to be $1,500. Then we're going to have this call, and then we'll give you like your supplement and dietary restrictions for the next 3 months. That does not help you work. And if that is what you're looking for, that is okay. There are plenty of other people in this space that are doing that. We're not one of them because we all 3 of us, me and my 2 other practitioners that work with me, we've been through those programs and they have failed us. And so we designed something different, and we're not the only ones. And we think we're doing a pretty good job of it just with our client successes. And a big piece of that is we don't overpromise. We're not going to be, if you just microdose psilocybin, this is going to fix all of your problems. If you take the KPV, like this is going to fix all of your gut issues. Like we know that's actually not the case. And so if we transition into the peptide space, like, yeah, peptides can be a valuable tool when your foundations are in a pretty good spot. If you've got a ton of gut overgrowth though, and you just want to use peptides, please go to someone else. We are not the right fit for you. We can use them. They have a time and a place. We will explain what we deem is that time and place and talk about different options. If you want to do it on your own, we are happy to support you. And if that's the only approach you want to take, no, that we are not open to that. So and these things do have a time and a place. And if we look for peptides, the emerging research, and even if we look at historical research, there is some good research that is out there for a variety of things. I do think there's a lot of limitations in some of this research. I think there's some people doing some interesting and different things, especially when it comes to significant chronic illness. And I'll tell you that we do have a few clients, specifically a few of my clients. I typically work with the more complex cases where we've got them working with a licensed prescribing practitioner, doing some other work like microdosing tirzepatide for immune modulation, for mast cell stabilization, for kind of underlying stability and support. It's not for weight loss. We do also have some clients using it for weight loss, and we have some thoughts on that. We are not anti it, and we do want to make sure that if you are going to go on this, we need to look out for some things. And I'll tell you, we've had a few clients go on GLP-1s, and a variety of them, and come to us with some seemingly weird side effects that their doctors did not tell them about. And they're like, hey, all of a sudden I'm feeling just really low mood. I am having a hard time getting out of bed. I'm having some weird thoughts just to be more present. Depression and some of the more mental and emotional health side of things, it's actually a very common side effect that many physicians I'm seeing are not sharing with patients before they go on these medications, which I have many feelings on. And I'll tell you, I go through the emotions. When there was one client that came to me and she was just having a really hard time. And I said, when was the last time you upped your GLP-1, like your doctor upped your GLP-1? And it was within a couple weeks. And I said, I do know that depression, and I have friends in the space and they've gotten panic calls and messages of like, I am suicidal. I am getting ready to hurt myself, like these kinds of things. And their doctors did not communicate to them that, hey, by the way, this can be a side effect. If you notice this is coming up, like, please let me know so we can decrease your dosage and these symptoms will go away almost immediately. Versus, oh, I think I need to up my SSRI. I need to go on some sort of anti-anxiety, anti-depression medication. It's like, knowledge is power. Why is no one telling you that depression, these dark, intrusive thoughts, are actually an incredibly common side effect? And if they come up, please communicate that to your doctor so they can adjust your dosage immediately, because we don't want you to hurt yourself. It's just a side effect, and it can be a very big and dangerous side effect, which, by the way, birth control did this to me a couple times. So did medications that were supposed to do the opposite. And I spent over a decade of my life on these medications, and I had every side effect under the sun. By the way, these are largely not studied on women. Also important to know, most medications are largely not studied on women. And if they are, we need to look at the demographics of who they're studied on. Are they teens? Are they midlife, we'll say mid-reproductive life, 20s and 30s? Were they early perimenopausal? Were they full-blown perimenopausal? Were they menopausal? Were they postmenopausal? Because all of that matters, because our hormones play a big role in women's health, which is largely why we are excluded from studies. We were not required to be in studies until 1992 or 1993, which is mind-blowing. And even still, you may see a few women included in studies. Is that enough, though? Were they young 20-year-olds, females? Which, of course, studying those types of individuals have a lot of value. And what about perimenopausal women? What's going on with estrogen? How does estrogen and lowered progesterone and lower testosterone, how does that impact these medications? Women also have more side effects to medications. When we look at psychedelics, we can look at peptides, these GLP-1s, like even any prescription medication, like women have 80% more side effects is the last statistic I've seen. And we are still understudied. Why? It's because our hormones are changing and it's hard to keep those consistent in a lab. And so it's easier just to study things on males or very young women with quote unquote optimal hormones, or put them on birth control. And we can kind of take the hormone piece out of it. And we also know that hormonal birth control changes things. Basic things like picking a partner, because our pheromones change. And who we're attracted to changes when we're in birth control. This is real. We have information on this, real, valid information on this. And many of us are not shared this information. And doctors largely don't even know most of this information, which is such a shame. And it's because they're not, we need to understand like what are physicians trained in? They're not trained in how to fix and heal the body. They're trained in how to symptom manage. And then if we look at things like surgery is like, how do we fix the body so it can still function, not optimally always, in the case of, I just met with someone, I meet with people all the time that share the similar story, but someone had to have their gallbladder out. Thank goodness for Western medicine. And she was having severe gallbladder attacks. She needed her gallbladder out. And they told her that just go back to your regular nutrition, your regular diet. You don't need any support. Your body can live without a gallbladder and it works just fine. It does not work just fine. We need that gallbladder. And if we're not going to have that gallbladder, you're going to have to be on a supplement for the rest of your life. And that was mind-blowing to her. And she's not the only one. I hear this all the time. What if I need an iron infusion? Can I still work with you guys? Of course. Go get an iron infusion. By the way, just so you're aware, a lot of people react. Like almost 50% of people react and have a negative reaction to iron infusions. Does that mean you shouldn't get it? No, that does not mean that. And just so you're aware, in case no one else told you, that is a possibility. And we've seen it more times than we'd like to count. There are many things we can do to help with that. There are some things that Western medicine will do to help and support if you do have a reaction. That's why you do it in a medical environment. And there are many other things that we can do from a more holistic or functional space to support that. And so once again, these peptides, and there's a lot of quote unquote peptide coaches that are now coming out because that is what they are looking at and that is what they use. And they're like, all we just need is peptides. That's all we need to look at. Well, yeah, let's do an elimination diet. Let's do some of this. And we're just going to push you on high doses of peptides and this is going to fix everything. Oh my goodness. Well, what about coming off the peptides? What does that look like? What about coming off of medications? What does that look like? Is that a possibility? GLP-1s, for reference, by and large, were not meant to come off of, ever. A lot of these negative side effects that some of these companies are now having lawsuits brought about them, they were published in the original research. And, we can look, if we want to go down the conspiracy theory route, all of these things, like, they were largely excluded, and you will not see some of these things widely published. And if you do a little digging, very easy to find, by the way. But most people don't do that, which I get. It's a lot of work. You want to do all this research. There's so much information out there, especially with tools like AI. Man, we can get access to so much information. And where are the credible sources? I've seen AI straight up make up studies. And I'm like, where is this study? Because anytime I use AI to help me with research, which by the way, I do, I want to look at each and every study and I will go to PubMed specifically and I will type in the study. I usually type in like the ID of the study and I want to see the actual study before I reference it or use any part of it. So I want to make sure it's a good study. I want to see what was studied, who was studied, how long was it studied. Like all of these things really go a long way. So when we talk about these magic pills, like the reality is, I'll tell you, like I've never found one. There's a lot of tools that are out there that all have a time and a place. And if you don't have your foundations in place, I will tell you these magic pills won't do a whole lot, or you're going to have to stay on them forever. And that is your choice. 100%. It is your body. It is your choice. And I think it's very important, as I talk about, I feel like all of the time, knowledge is power. And we deserve, all of us deserve to know and understand what we are putting into our bodies, how this might impact our bodies and our health, short-term and long-term. This is also why pretty much every supplement, every protocol that we recommend within our practice, I have done. I have used. Now, there are a few things that I have not, just because they have not applied to me. And I've done deeper and bigger research. I've looked at other practitioners and how they've used these things in their practice. I've looked at the physiological mechanisms behind these things to get a better understanding of all of the things that these can play a role in, positive and negative and other. And so we like to look at all of these things all together. So if you were going to pursue these things, totally, totally fine. I also just think there's a lot of misinformation on all sides out there. And I'll tell you, I'm pretty deep in the energetic spiritual community, and there's a lot of people having a lot of negative in that space, a lot of negative feedback in the psychedelic space, and also the peptide space specifically. And the peptide space, I definitely understand where they're coming from. I also, a lot of those people in the energetic space are coming at it from, they were in the psychedelic space and they misused the psychedelics, and they did think going into it was going to be the magic fix, and or they work with people who have largely misused a lot of the psychedelic space. But once again, I think there's positives to a lot of these spaces, but I think we need to have better understanding, clearer, if we want to call it maybe criteria on who this could actually benefit. When might be the time that someone could benefit from this? Who might not benefit from this? I just had I just had somebody about me this morning asking if they think if I thought they would be a good candidate for microdosing. They've done it in the past and they had success, and they're having, they're dealing with mold issues and a lot of mental and emotional health struggles, and they're already having emotions come up in early parts of drainage pathway support work. And I was like, yeah, it absolutely could be supportive. And here are the things that could happen that could make it not supportive. Everyone is different. Everyone is different. And if you're going to do this, here are a few things that I think would be most beneficial as a starting point to make sure this could be beneficial. And with the understanding that, look, if you start this and it doesn't feel supportive, if it brings up more anxiety, if it brings up emotions too fast, faster than you're able to process them, we may not want to use this tool at this point in time. Not that I think it's a bad tool. And is it the right time? Is it the right time for each individual person to do this? And that's where things get complicated. This is where so much gray area comes into play. And we just need to understand what all of these things are doing, how they can help, how they may not help our bodies, and what are some things we want to look at when it comes to all of this. With the GLP-1s, once again, like, we're not anti-GLP-1. If someone wants to be on a GLP-1, that's totally fine. We're going to make sure that we keep an eye on their nutrition and try and keep their protein intake as high as possibly we can. Try and keep their calories up as much as we possibly can, so the metabolic adaptation isn't crazy, that their calories going into it aren't crazy low. I'll tell you, and I this is another one I see all the time. Women going on GLP-1s for weight loss specifically, who have no blood sugar dysregulation issues, they just want to lose some weight, and they're going in already eating 800 to 1,000 calories. This is a mistake. We need food, we need calories, and I know we've been sold this magic formula of move more, eat less as the way to lose weight. And I will tell you, yeah, for some people, especially men, yeah, for sure. For women though, much more complicated, which is why women struggle more with weight loss, because we start to lose our muscle mass earlier. We have lower muscle mass to begin with than males, by and large. I'm talking very, very generalized right now. Many women are super into HIIT training or like high intensity type of stuff, which isn't typically going to build muscle. A lot of group classes are mostly women. We're not going to see the same progressive overload. While we can build some muscle, are we going to see consistent and constant muscle progression increases in strength? Probably not, from at least a lot of the classes I've seen and have been a part of. if someone already is going in with gut issues, stomach specifically, but I will say generalized gut issues, this can be a big problem. Constipation, stomach inflammation, GI inflammation, gastric emptying type of issues, gastroparesis, acid reflux, heartburn type issues. If they're coming in with low stomach acid production, H. pylori infections, all kinds of gut overgrowth kind of issues, we often see minimal success with the GLP-1s. And we have plenty of people who lose 10 to 40 plus pounds on GLP-1s and see great success and can come off of it after a certain period of time and keep the weight off, which is kind of the goal. So, invitation, I talk about this a lot in our email newsletters. If you subscribe to our email list, invitation, I usually end the email newsletters with some sort of invitation or prompt or questions or some things to think about. So my invitation for you at the end of this podcast is, if you want to use one of these tools, one of these biohacks, one of these resources, understand there is no magic pill. Not that I've seen, once again. Not that I've seen. Understand pros and cons of doing it. Most importantly, how might you best support your body going through this before, during, and after to have the best experience possible and get the results that you actually want to see? If you have questions about any of this, I would love to answer them. Email us, info@trifectacollective.net, DM us, comment on the podcast, on any social media stuff. Would love to hear any and all of your feedback. As always, thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow. If it resonates, 5-star reviews really, really, really mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.